for Starbucks coffee in a grocery store near you? Then sit back and enjoy the exceptional taste of Starbucks at home.
Hello everyone. Welcome to ST Podcasts. I'm Sahar Talebi, an activist eager to provide insight about our society today, tomorrow, and few generations before. Now, when it comes to talking about history, old news, and our society, I can already feel most of you yawning. Well, I hope you have a cup of coffee to enjoy this ride because what I'm going to be touching on today isn't a usual story. It's not another day in a society where it's considered typical for social norms and stereotypes affecting individuals' lives. We hear about racial segregation in our history classrooms, wars in Middle Eastern countries on TV and our Facebook feeds, shootings and bombings on TV. In fact, it happens so frequently that it's all now considered usual. This is about our lives, humanity. We are all equal, and I am a firm believer that the journey we go through as a person will shape who we are tomorrow. This is about our society by putting limits and boundaries due to our culture and ethnicity on individuals and determining their fate. This is about Indigenous people. Today we have Mr. McQueen, and he will be talking about his perspective on the negative effects a colonizer society has on Indigenous individuals through their depiction of war, freedom, and mental health. So I'm here with Mr. McQueen, and he's going to be talking about how the Aboriginals had to fight for their rights and freedoms.
Okay, so one of the things that's interesting to kind of think about when you and I are living in Canada in 2018 is that all of us are what they call treaty people. Whether you're an Aboriginal person or a non-Aboriginal person, if you're a citizen of Canada, it falls onto these big agreements that they call treaty people. And the history of First Nations people with the government of Canada is very difficult. It's very long. It's very complicated. The first thing that I think of is the legacy of what they call residential schools. Residential schools, believe it or not, stay open all the way until 1996. I was already finished high school in 1996, almost finished university, and the thought that those places still exist in those times it's a shocking thing. It's a difficult thing. And a lot of things, not to say that things are perfect, but Canada, I think, is trying to move in the right direction as far as treatment to First Nations people. There's a group that published a report that's called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and that report became an official thing in 2015. And that attempts, in as much as you can, in a piece of law to acknowledge all of the mistreatments that First Nations people have gone through, an attempt to recognize those things and honor those things, and build something new going forward. That's a difficult job. Obviously, that's a really, really complicated job. It starts off really with sort of just good information. And a lot of the time we get that information from documentaries and textbooks and those kinds of things. But when you can get it from like a novel, like a fiction story with characters and a plot and that sort of thing, that's a neat way to do it. That engages that thinking, and lots of good stuff in a book like that one.
Yep, thank you. And personally, how do you think that affects an individual's lifestyle, how the society influences somebody's faith?
You always want to... Everybody wants to wake up in the morning and feel like they have some control over what happens in their day, and they want to feel like they have value as they go through their day. And when you lose those things through no fault of your own, for example, if you're in a situation quite literally where there's a knock on the door and a mom answers the door, someone's come to take your child away, that disrupts those things. It disrupts those family ties and that sense of safety, that sense of identity, that sense of community, and that's generationally, that's a huge, huge thing to try to overcome, but hopefully things are starting to move in a more aware and more positive direction these days.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We can picture and imagine all we want how the colonizer society affected indigenous individuals, but we will never truly understand how they felt without reading about a particular story, a plot, and that is what the novel 3-Day Road has done for the audience and the readers. I have interviewed an Aboriginal teacher at Sir Frederick Banting Secondary School who wanted to stay anonymous for his opinion. I asked him, how do you think residential schooling influences an individual's lifestyle in the past? Quote, I think that residential schooling is one of the greatest atrocities that occurred in Canadian history. It ripped families apart. It destroyed wonderful human beings and a wonderful culture. Anytime a child is taken away from his or her family, there is serious damage on the child's long-term development, emotional/physical. He stated that it's shocking that last school, residential school, was closed in late 1996. Quote, Stephen Harper has apologized for Canada's part in the schools, and I don't think an apology is enough and it can't amend for this sin. He stated, there isn't anything Canada can do for this sin that has been committed. Aboriginals are still dealing with the consequences of residential schools. There's higher suicide rates, addictions to drugs and alcohol. He believes that this is all connected to the residential schools. Generations and generations and generations losing their root language and sense of their own identity. That was an Aboriginal's teacher opinion in Sir Frederick Banting Secondary School. So let's please put hand in hand together. We make the society. So let's please learn from the mistakes the previous generations have made and contribute to the well-being of our population. Thank you.
In times of trouble